It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy. Back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest out brew the magic world. As always, that deck list is going to be down in the description below as well. So I'd really appreciate it if you get interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe. Consider checking out the links in the description. I'd really appreciate it. But today, we are covering a commander I honestly figured I would cover eventually. I just didn't expect it to be released in a standard set. That's Lathril Blade of the Elves. I actually originally had the Tyvar from Martial Machine Aftermath to cover for Jumpstart because I saw some of the reprints of the Elves we were getting. But as soon as I saw Lathril, I knew it was time to cover Lathril because I actually haven't covered Lathril on the channel. Lathril is a 4-mana Golgari Elf Noble with Menace. It says whenever Lathril deals combat damage to a player, we get to create that many Elf Warrior creature tokens, and the big part of her, you can tap 10 elves you control other than Lathril, so 11 total, and each opponent loses 10, and you gain 10. Lathril is scary as a commander because it gives an option to start chunking off your opponent's life total for something the elves want to do anyway, which is make a ton of elves. I kind of like this because Lathril kind of gives you two ways to win the game. You have the traditional elf ball way, where you're going to dump a ton of elves down, grow them, and use abilities that are going to give them buffs in a classic green fashion to win the game. Or we can try to find multiple ways to untap Lathril and maybe all other elves we have multiple times to use Lathril's ability. Again, remember that in a standard game of Commander, we need to use Lathril 4 times in reality at minimum to knock the board out. It's never going to be that. I think more often than not it's going to be 3 to knock an entire table out with combat damage and things like that. But again, if we can get to that 3 or 4 number, we're going to knock the table out. And I think that's important to focus on, is we really need to use Lathril as many times as we can, ideally 3 or 4 to get a game done. We're going to talk about that. Again, do the Lathril plan, and if we can't, we're just going to do the green thing of getting stuck in and doing combat for our opponents to have to deal with. But we get to play Elves. And there's so many fun Elves in Golgari colors. I think it's interesting. The more that I look at Elves, I think the more that I like the Golgari Elves, because I love Tyvar, and Tyvar's back in is not back in Jumpstart. We did just see him in Duskborn, but we do get to play every printing of Tyvar on the deck. We get to play Tyvar's first Planeswalker from Kaldheim, which gives all of our elves the ability to tap for mana. It can put counters on an elf and untap it. It can make an elf creature token on its 0, or the -6 is whenever you cast an elf, it gains haste until end of turn and you draw 2 cards. So overall, a great thing. I think the best part about this Tyvar is it allows all your elves to tap for black mana, which is a huge thing when we start to look at some of the other really great things we have access to in this set. Elvish Archdruid, another classic elf. Other elves get that little buff, and it taps for a green for each elf you control, doing what elves do so well in tapping for big mana. Elvish Harbinger may be a 1-mana Dork for 3 mana, but it makes up for it by searching your library for any elf you want and putting it on top. A really good thing when this deck is chock full of great elves, especially 1 or 2 new ones that we'll talk about when we get to that section. Elvish Warmaster makes you a 1/1 elf warrior the first time one of our elves would come in under your control each turn, so on your turn and your opponent's turns. And then for 7 mana, you do have the option to give all your elves +2/+2 in Death Touch. There are cheaper ways to get a buff to all your elves, which we'll talk about on a future slide, but know that Warmaster is a backup in case you don't find either of the other 2 and you really need it. Galadrim Brigade's an interesting elf. This came out of one of the scene boxes, but I really like this one. It comes in normally for 3 mana. You can pay 1 in agreement as many times as you want to, and if you do, you get that many copies of it. And each copy just gives all other elves +1/+1, a great buff to make all your elves a big threat. And remember, you only need 2, 3, or 4 of these +1/+1 effects to start making your 1/1s real threats, 4 4s and 5 5s, right? I think that's important. Imperious Perfect, another +1/+1 elf buff to our whole board. We can pay a green and tap it to make an elf warrior. This is great to get another token, right, each turn, making sure we're getting towards that 10 for Lathril. Remember that because Lathril's ability is the one that's tapping the elves don't have to have haste. The elves just need to be there and be untapped. So we don't mind making a ton of these elves each turn as long as they can be tapped for Lathril in order to use her ability. Lysalana Huntmaster says whenever we cast an elf spell, we can make an elf warrior. Again, another way to get more of them on the board. Marwyn and Priest of Titania, of course, another more classic elf staples. Marwyn says whenever another elf comes in, you put a counter on Marwyn, and she can tap for a green for equal to her power, which can get very big right over the course of a game. And then Priest of Titania, just another tap a green for each elf on the battlefield. Not even elves you control, just elves on the battlefield. So another way to get a ton of green mana off just a 2-mana elf. And you can start to see that elves do really well at making mana so that you can do more things, whether it be play more elves or do other things. There's the Tyvar from March of the Machine, the Aftermath, the one that I was looking at doing. Whenever one more elves you control attack, they get Death Touch. The big ability is each creature you control has, whenever a mana ability of this creature resolves, you put a number of counters on it equal to the amount of mana it produced. So every creature that's tapping for mana is growing each turn for the amount of mana it produced, and your elves can start to get out of hand really quickly. We have some spells that can make elf tokens. Elvish Promenade makes an elf for each elf you control, which is actually may seem bad on the surface, but when you start to realize how many elves traditionally elf decks have by the mid game, this could be really good. And depending on how many elves we could have, this could just immediately unlock another Lathril trigger for us, on a turn. For the common good, can make X top copies that are token of a target copies of a target token we control, and then all tokens get indestructible until our next turn. This is great because it could potentially stop our opponents from board wiping our elf warrior tokens, keeping them alive for Lathril, right? And then gaining a life for each token you control. This is also great if you're going to take a big attack. You have all your elf tokens, indestructible and swing in for an attack, right? If you need to do that. But I think most of the time, this just makes you some extra copies of the elves so that you can get Lathril's ability off, and then hopefully, if someone does board the wipe or wipe the board, that we still have tokens laying around for next time when Lathril comes back down. Elven Ambush, same thing. Warrior for each elf you control. Again, we want to have more of them if we can. Nice part of Ambush, it is at instant speed, so we could do it before our turn, and all those elves would be available to be tapped or used on our turn. Galadrim Ambush makes X1/1 elf warrior creature tokens where X is the number of attacking creatures. The really fun part about this is they don't even have to be attacking us. So let's say we're playing another attack and they go wide and take a big attack. We ambush, make a bunch of warriors, prevent all damage that's dealt this turn by non-elf creatures, and have a ton of tokens, right, waiting for us when it comes back to our turn. Windslift Slice is a kind of bite effect, letting a creature we control deal damage equal to its power to a creature we don't control, and we get an elf warrior creature token for each excess damage dealt to it. So if we have a big elf and someone has a small creature, do it, net a ton of elves, and potentially turn on more of Lathril's ability, right? And I think the thing to remember about Lathril is, yes, Lathril has to tap 10 elves with it. But if we have any ways to just untap Lathril, and we have enough elves to tap it immediately again, we can tap Lathril twice, right? Tap her the first time with the 10, deal the 10 damage, untap her, tap her a second time with 10 more. So as much as we want to untap every single elf we have and do it again, there's also a world where we can just untap Lathril and do it again. And I think that's the important designation here. We have things like Tyvar Jubilant Brawler. This is the one from Friction LB1. This gives creatures the ability to have haste as long as they're tapping for mana or an ability. But its +1 can untap a target creature. I mean, we can just straight up untap Lathril herself, meaning that there is a world where Lathril could attack, get a bunch of tokens off her damage ability, and then use Tyvar or some of these things to untap her, and then use her ability, right? Or use her ability, untap, use her ability again. Copperhorn Scout is an elf that says whenever it attacks, we untap each other creature we control. It doesn't untap itself, but I don't think we care. If there's a world where Lathril uses her ability, and then Copper Scout attacks and sacrifices itself just to untap our entire board and let us, Lathril again, I think that's killer. Not only that, but if you think about it, we could go into combat, attack, Copperhorn could untap all of our creatures, then we could Lathril, right? So you start to see just the amount of ways you can take these untaps effects, and it's going to change your play lines. But I think the big elf that everyone's going to talk about when we talk about Lathril is Dionys Elvish Archdruid from the Jumpstart set. I'm very surprised this isn't a rare for just the ability that it has. Elves you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped during your turn, untap it and put a counter on it. This triggers only once each turn. This is bonkers in conjunction with a lot of things that elves want to do. Tapping for mana, attacking, and Lathril's ability. I think Dionis is an absolute slam dunk in any elf deck, and it's not surprising that I think at the moment it's sitting at like $15. So it just goes to show you that this card's going to be well used in a lot of elf decks, and it's probably going to get a little bit scary for what it does. Of course, we're going to play Seedborn Muse and effects like it to untap all of our permanents during each other player's untap step. Again, if we could Lathril on everyone's turn, they have to deal with our board, otherwise they're dead. And I think that's what Lathril just succeeds so well at, is you have to deal with me, or I'm just gonna make it harder for you. Benefactor's Drought and Vitalize just untap all creatures we control, giving us the option at instant speed to untap all of our creatures and use Lathril again if we need to. It's a fun idea to play with a stack to our opponent's disadvantages, to untap all of our creatures and do Lathril maybe at the key moment. I wouldn't be very surprised if with all these untap abilities, there may be a time where someone plays a board wipe and you'd be able to just knock them out with Lathril before that board wipe resolves, or, cheeky ways to do things in order to, use Lathril's ability at instant speed to really take advantage of that damage. We have a couple more other ways to do it. You have something like Umbral Mantle, which can pay to just untap Lathril. So again, if we have enough Elves, here's another way to just untap Lathril. And then Quest for Renewal can untap all creatures we control during each other player's upstep. We just have to start getting quest counters on this. It gets a quest counter on every time a creature we control becomes tapped, which is something we already do want to do already when we're making mana. And as long as we get 4 on there, they start untapping at everybody's turn, and then it's probably just game unless someone can deal with Lathril, right? I think that Lathril, the more that I look at this deck, the more that I realize that you have a better chance of ending the game with Lathril's ability than you do with combat, but I love that we have the option for both. This is what the deck also can do so well, which is combat. There's the newest Tyvar over there on the right, giving all your creatures +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. I think Azuri is the classic version of this ability for 5 mana, giving all elves +3/+3 and trample. Again, brutal when you start growing your elves and going wide. And then we got a fun one in Haldir from the Lord of the Rings commander set. For 6 mana until end of turn, other elves you control get Vigilance and Pulse for each counter on Haldir. So here's an option to grow Haldir and then buff based on the number of counters on Haldir. So I kind of like that we have probably the best of this ability. Tyvar gives us another really great second option, and then Haldir's not a bad tertiary option if we don't have other ways to do it. But we have other ways to do this effect, right? We have things like Beastmaster Ascension, which is going to grow over the course of us attacking. Every time we attack, we put a quest counter on it. When it gets to 7 quest counters, all of our creatures get +5/+5. Turning all of our 1/1 elves into 6/6 at minimum, and are going to start hitting hard. Garruk's Uprising can give our whole board trample. So even if we don't have these buffs, if our creatures are hitting hard, they're going to hit hard. I think more often than not, we're probably not going to draw off of Garruk's Uprising when creatures are coming in, but we are going to start hitting hard when we get trample on. And then a card that I think pairs really well with what Lathril's trying to do is Throne of the God Pharaoh. This is the beginning of our end step. Each opponent loses life. You go to the number of tap creatures we control. If you think about it, this can kind of give Lathril the ability to double her ability, right? Lathril taps 10 and her to deal 10, and then our end step, we have at least 11 creatures tapped, meaning that 11 more damage. That's 21 damage in just one turn, right? Now leading to a game clock of our opponents having to deal with our board. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. This is my version 1.0 shot at Lathril, and I'll be honest, after brewing Lathril, it was a deck that I hadn't really thought about, but I had a ton of fun brewing. But there's something I'd going into testing. I think we'd ideally want to see, do we have enough of the right things? Do we need some more combat buffs, things like Overwhelming Stampede or Banner of Kinship, to make sure that if we need to get into combat, we get into combat well? Again, I think we have enough of them. We are playing some of these abilities. It's not like we have none of them in Overwhelming Stampede, and Kinship are the only ones we could bring in. But do we need more of them? And then do we want something like Freyalise? This is a Planeswalker that her +2 can make an elf token, -2 has a little bit of removal, and then -6 has a big draw ability. Do we want more things that make an elf token every turn? Again, there's a lot of ways to approach this. I just like Freyalise because she has so much utility in the fact that she can make a token, destroy something, or even draw, depending on what we do with it. I'm not saying Freyalise is the best of the things that aren't in the deck at making elf tokens. I'm just saying it's intuitive. Sorry, it's an indication of what we could add, right, to make more elf tokens. But let's get into our playtests. Getting into playtest number 1, keeping a 3-lander with the Paradise Druid, Llanowar Elves, and that pretty new Foundations printing. Got Lathril Brigade and Elvish Warmaster. A great hand's going to get us started, get us moving, and get us going. I think we'll just play that Llanowar Waste turn 1, get Llanowar Elves, get the party down started. I mean, we need to get to 4 to Lathril, but I don't think we mind taking our time, you know, getting ourselves up there to get it started. I think we'll put the Warmaster in this turn. It could also make sense to do the Druid, but I kind of like getting the Warmaster in this turn. Remember, the Chasm's coming in tapped. But now, ideally, here in turn 3, we should be able to get a couple Elves down as well. The Druid could be fun. We could also just play Lathril, right, and get into attacking with Lathril next turn, which doesn't seem like a bad idea. Make an Elf Warrior token when it comes in because of Elvish Warmaster. And, you know, we can always attack with the Warmaster if we want to. But turn 3, I don't know if we're going to have too many attacks. I think we just kind of want to prepare for our next turn here. Turn 4, we didn't get a land, but I'd say, okay, we still have 4 mana. I think Paradise Druid might make sense to come down now. Make sure that we have more land, you know, more mana for next turn. Leave the 2 mana up, you know, we could bluff that we have something. We could always play the Copperhorn Scout, right? Working our way up for next turn. But again, there's probably a world where Lathril probably hits somebody here for 2. And I think if that's the case, I don't mind the idea of Copperhorn Scout coming in. Potentially next turn it could untap, right? Big board of Elves, depending on what we get ourselves into. So come here for turn 5. We got 5, 6 mana, right? But we have 9 Elves total. So we're a little bit off Lathril being, able to tap in and do that. My thought is we could go to combat, attack with the Scout and Lathril. Lathril may get us those last couple 2 Elves we need this turn, and then Copperhorn could untap it, and we could get a big tap this turn. Or, you know, we could get a Gallagher Brigade in and a copy of it. That was my first thought. Come in for 3 here, pay 1 into it. I think we can only squad once here to get a copy of it. That's going to make us another Elf Warrior. So we got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plus Lathril. My thought was attack with the Scout and Lathril. Lathril probably hits here, making 4 more Elves because of the Brigades. And then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, and the regular Brigade and the copy of the Brigade and Lathril, you know, to deal 10. And now we're off to the races. I think we're in really great shape. But now we have the sneaky place of if nobody does anything and everybody's wide open, we now have the option to play the Elvish Assault, making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16 more Elves. Tap Lathril for 10, attack with the Coppercorn Scout, untapping Lathril, tap for another 10. And now we're very close to just, you know, ending the game with, you know, with 1 more attack or some more sneaky stuff. We have the Heroic Intervention between these 2 to protect the board if need be. We've got a bit of removal if need be. But I think this is one of those board states where if somebody doesn't get rid of Lathril, I think the game's just over. That's 20 life that turn. So 30 life total so far from Lathril. And all we need to do would be untap and have another combat with all these 1/1s. And I think the game's just over. You know, we could also conversely just attack here instead of doing Lathril's ability. I mean, Lathril's ability is great, right? But there's also a bunch of 3/3s we could just ram into our opponents as well. So there are other options, right? But I think depending on what people's board states are, you know, we could always attack with 1 set, right? And then use Lathril for just 1 time, right? And do 10 damage plus the combat. You know what I mean? There's a lot of options there. But I think it's a good place to stop for playtest number 1. We kind of saw a nice board state there with what Lathril could do. Here we're keeping a 3-lander with Natural Order, a way to sacrifice a green creature, go get a green creature of our choice, and put it on the battlefield for the common good to make some copy of the Elves, Priest of Titania, and Azuri. So not a bad starting hand. Chasm in turn 1, because they really don't have anything to do turn 1. Turn 2, we see a Wirewood Channeler can tap for X mana of any 1 color, where X is the number of Elves on the battlefield. So kind of that, you know, that Priest of Titania ability. Here, I think we get the Titania down, right? So that way we can start using it on more turns, right, to get more things down. Turn 3 here, we see a Paradise Druid. I think I'd kind of rather get Lathril down here turn 2, or turn 3, sorry, just so we can get it attacking, right? Get it in, get it start attacking to make us more of those Elf Warrior tokens. Turn 4, we didn't draw land, but that's a-okay. We've got 6 mana to our name right now. If we attack with Lathril, we may even have 8, right, with the Elves that we make. Archdruid could also get us 3, right, off of Lathril. I think I'd go Archdruid and then Paradise Druid. There. Titania would tap for 3. Use 2 of it for the Druid. I'd have 2 more. But I don't have anything, but that's a-okay. I have a tough time believing we couldn't get 3 damage in with the Lathril this turn to get a couple of Elf Warriors to get the board started. Turn 5 here, Wirewood Lodge can untap a target elf, so that's another option to untap Lathril. Natural Order is a really strong card, allowing you to sack a green creature, go get a green creature of your choice. Remember that these Elf Warriors are green, meaning we could easily sack one to go get a green creature of our choice. There's a lot of ways we could take that. I think Dionysus would make a ton of sense. Tap these for mana, and then, you know, they get to untap, and we still have the mana. I think that would make the most sense to me. Get rid of an Elf Warrior. Go get Dionysus. You know, tap Paradise Druid for, I guess, a green or a black. It doesn't really matter. It gets a counter on it. Tap Archdruid for 7. You know, it gets counter doing Priest of Titania for 7. So we've got 15 mana total. You know, we could go 3 in for Azuri, or we could just go 7 into for the common good. Make 7 more Elf Warriors. Gain, what, 9 life for the 9 tokens. And I think I would just go ahead and tap Lathril, Dionysus, and all of those elves. All the elves are going to untap and get a counter. Dionysus is going to get a counter, and Lathril is going to get a counter. That's 10 to all our opponents, and I can just do the same thing again. They're not going to untap. Remember, Dionysus lets them untap once per turn. But that just goes to show you that that's now 20 damage this turn. And now next turn, because of all this green mana I can make, I can just put a Azuri down and ram through for damage, or I can put 20 more damage again with Dionysus plus Lathril. So Dionysus is really becoming a key piece in these elf decks, especially for something like Lathril, because it's just brutal, right? That means if I have enough creatures, I'm guaranteed to be able to tap Lathril twice in one turn. And so that's why I think Dionysus is such a key piece. I think we can stop that playtest there, because again, I either do this line again, or if somebody removes Dionysus or Lathril, I just dump the mana into Azuri and just nuke the board, right? With a bunch of elves with trample and the buff, right? If you get rid of Lathril, I put Azuri in. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15. So that's 31 mana. With the 3 of them, all of them get to untap because of Dionysus. And now it's 60 mana. Just dump it all into Azuri to give them massive trample. If you get rid of Dionysus, then that's okay. I'm just going to still put Azuri down. Like I said, we have 31 mana. Dump it all into here. I'm still getting probably, what, plus 18 in trample. You're dead to these elves. So it just goes to show you that in this spot, whether I win the game with Lathril, I win the game with this Azuri. And the nice part there with that natural order is if I had all this mana and I needed up the buff, I can go get the Azuri, right, with that natural order. So it just goes to show you that, like, how powerful natural order is in an elf deck like this. But the whole goal of this week is to start introducing a third playtest in all of our decks, so let's do it. Keeping a 3-lander with Herald, King of Skemfar, which when it comes in can look at the top 5, and you can get any Elf Warrior or Tyvar card from among them and put it into your hand. It's a good way to dig for some fun. Archdruid, Harbinger, the Ambush, and a 3-lander. So I like it. Not a bad hand. The Titania just made it a whole lot better. I was going to say kind of taking turn 2 off stinks, but now we get the ability to pretty much just keep it running turn 2 with this Priest of Titania. This is nice because now we can keep the party started, and keep it going. Next turn, I'm kind of thinking we could sneak this tap land in and either go for the Archdruid or the Harbinger. I think I kind of like going for the Archdruid, just because now we can make even more mana on the next turn. Harbinger's great. Again, here we go for Dionysus, Azuri. You could start to see these elves that are going to be these elves you always want. And again, I think it's nice to play these creatures that are going to get them to help you out from time to time. Here, I think I just go 4 into Lathril, right? Now, each of these are tapping for 3. I could go Harbinger. Remember, they only make green, though. There's a world where I tap them both before I play Lathril. I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I could do like Lathril plus Herald if I wanted to. But I think Lathless into Harbinger, going to get Dionys, right, and putting it on top, makes the most sense to me. We come in the next turn, 4 for Dionys, right? 4 for Dionys. Tap the Harbinger for a green, tap the Archdruid for 5, tap Priest for 5. So we've got 11. They all untap. I think we could even tap one of them before. Oh, well, Harbinger can make black. That's right. So we could still play Herald. Go looking at the top 5. Ideally, we want something like Tyvar, but that's okay. We hit none of it, which is A-okay. We still got to look through. The 10 mana feels awkward now that we have it, but that's A-okay. We'll just go to attack with Lathril. Make probably 3 warriors here. Lathril gets to untap and get that counter, right? Because of... would be... Yeah, it'd be 3. It'd be 4, right? Because the Archdruid, and the counter goes on before damage. And I think now we're in a great spot. I mean, we don't have one of those key elves to deal good damage, but we're just a couple elves away from turning on Lathril. I think the important part here is Guilty Palace. When it comes in, we can reveal an elf from our hand. If we don't, it comes in tapped. I can reveal that Skemfar to have it come in untapped. The nice part here is that there's a world here now where every turn until I hit a engine runner, I can attack with Lathril, maybe make some elves, untap it with Dionys, and then, use Lathril's ability for this kind of, multiple damage each turn. We could also just start attacking with all the elves, right? They're going to untap because of Dionys and get the counters on them. And then we could still, use their mana after we attack. So there's a lot of options from this point. The Shadow Sage is kind of nice. We can have each opponent lose X life, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. So right now, if we played the Shadow Sage, it would be 10. But let's say there's a world where we attack with Lathril, make a couple more elves, right? Then we use Lathril's ability, dealing 10 to everybody. Now we're at, I think, 12 or 13, and then play the Skemphage, dealing 13 more that turn. Now you kind of have that threat. Remember that we actually do it twice because the Dionys, I guess, no, because Lathril already attacked. So if we had enough to do it, we could have done it twice with Lathril. Thinking about that, if I get rid of these from the attack, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we actually could have played the Skemfar, dealt 11, and then doubled Lathril that turn. So that was the other line as well. And you could start to see where just some of the fun from Lathril can come in. But let me know, what do you think of Lathril down in the comment section below? I'll be honest, I've kind of wanted an elf deck for a long time, and I've always looked at Gruul for elves, for Tyvar specifically. I don't know if I'm going to give this deck a shot. It kind of would be, I think, some fun. It's kind of what I want from elves, still getting some of the Stompion, but getting a little bit of the combo as well. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm committing to it, but it might be something I might try out in the future. I enjoy taking my brews and trying them out at my local tables just to see if they function or not in a pod that is a little bit higher up on the power scale. So it could be fun. If that's something you want to hear about, let me know in the comments and I'll let you know how it does. But other than that, I'd love to hear what you think, and I will catch you guys next time.